To Drinking Bros, presented by GhostBed.com. Yeah, welcome to Drinkin' Bros, kids. We got a live Tuesday afternoon show. It's the first time in Drinkin' Bros history we've done 1,200 plus episodes now that we've had a twin on of another guest.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Isn't that weird? I was trying to think if we've ever had a twin on. What are the chances?
One of our producers stalked the Olsen twins for a while, but I don't think that counts.
That doesn't count.
No.
Because he was...
and that was before they were famous.
Yeah,
too, so.
and he would have warrant for a while. Yeah. He never got to touch one of them. But we got Joe Pompliano on the show today. Yeah. AIDS survivor. Congratulations, Joe. We were talking about that before the show. What, Joe? We're all proud of you. It's only a few million people that listen to this thing. We want them to know your struggle.
I have two comments to start. One, the intro had me ready to run through a brick wall. So
Goddamn right.
Fan of that. And two, you got to keep your podcast counter going because me and my brother are not twins.
They're not?
There you go. Yeah.
No. Fuck off.
I told
All
you.
right, Nick. Come on. Wait.
Just,
hang on.
Just because there's 80 of them doesn't mean they're twins.
He looks like me, and I have four other brothers, which gets kind of confusing. But none of us are twins. We're all 2 years apart.
You're like the goddamn Gronkowskis.
But I'm sure you've done a lot of podcasts, right?
Yep.
Has somebody ever shamed the person who said that live on air? Nick, you're going to walk up behind us. We're going to get this in a wide. Let's show Nick on screen. He's the one that told us this information. I want you to stand. Let's see. Let's go into a wide. You stand right there. Yep. This is Nick. Can you see him, Joe?
Yeah, I can see him. Nick, you were wrong, man.
Look down at the ground.
Now, so Nick is Mexican, okay? He's Mexican.
Oh, well, only part. Half, yeah.
Apologize
it's
to
the left
to
half.
This. All white people don't look alike. Say it. Say it out loud, okay? All right. There's an internet article that says that you're twins, according to Nick, but he just got shamed.
Well, everyone knows that if it's on the internet, it's true.
Yeah,
it's true.
It's probably on CNN.
To be fair, though, you guys do look alike, and Nick,
of course,
you're gonna have to do some more research. And man, dude, we started off in a bad way because we were gonna focus on his AIDS, and now we got to focus on the fact that he's not a twin.
Yeah. Do you guys have kids? All the brothers? Do you have kids? And our second question is: are all the kids also male? Because the Gronkowskis are all dudes, and they all look similar as well. They all fucking pump out dude kids too. It's fucking ridiculous. So it's like some kind of weird cult.
Yeah.
No, we have two of them have kids and one's a daughter. So we got a female in the group now.
Nice. I'm about to have a daughter as well. How is that?
Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I mean, it's easy as an uncle. You know, you just hang out, you mess around. If she starts throwing up or pooping or doing whatever, then you hand her back off.
Get the fuck out of there.
Yeah, you got to get out of there. You got to get out of there. You're on Substack a lot. And I don't know what Substack is. However, it keeps popping up as a news source now. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is on this fucking thing like every goddamn day. Is he never going to die? Usually if you're over 7 feet, you die at like 60.
Yeah, no, he's immortal.
And he just keeps writing shit. You're on Substack. Tell everybody what Substack is.
Well, he's writing controversial shit. He's coming at LeBron James. He's coming at a bunch of people now.
So's Magic, though. Did you see Magic's interview on SportsCenter the other day?
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody needs to calm down and let the dude play his... Like, he's still playing. Shut the fuck up and let him play.
He called him Westbrook live on air.
Yeah, that's true.
Magic did. Did you see that?
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah. Called him Westbrook live on fucking air, and people were like, Jesus, man. Magic
said the quiet part out loud.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so tell everybody what Substack is.
All right, Substack is a newsletter service. So anyone can go sign up for it. It's for independent journalists per se, but anyone can go write. It's essentially a blog that gets delivered via email. So they provide the infrastructure for you to write emails that go and get delivered to people's inboxes. So they manage all the subscriptions, they manage all the analytics, everything like that. There's a free and a paid version. So you could create a newsletter that people pay for, right? And they do the credit card processing and everything like that. Or you could do a free. Mine is free. And I basically just put ads in it. So it's free for everyone to go read, and Substack delivers it. I don't pay them a fee or anything. It's basically just like the infrastructure to deliver it.
Got it. And when did you start this? Because it's called Huddle Up. How long ago did you guys get fired up?
So I started Huddle Up probably June of last year. So almost a year now.
Oh, shit. Congratulations. That's crazy, man. How many articles have you written?
Yeah. I write it every day, so however many that is. Every Monday through Friday, around 9 to 9:30 it goes out, depending on how late I am writing it.
And tell everybody what the articles are about, because it's kind of you're at a cross section between business and sports, right?
Yeah, dude. So I used to work at, I spent some time at Octagon Sports Agency in Washington, D.C. I thought I wanted to be a sports agent. I grew up with 4 brothers. I was like, hey, I like sports. I'm not going pro in anything. Why don't I try to do something over there? Realized pretty quickly that's not what I wanted to do. So I moved up to New York City. I got a job at JP Morgan. I was working in their wealth management side, trading fixed income. I liked it, didn't love it though. For the last 3 or 4 years, kind of just stuck it out and was determining what I wanted to do next. Figured that there was an opportunity at the intersection of both those passions, right? Sports and business. And when you think about it, the only guy in my mind that was really doing it well was Darren Rovell, and half the people hate him, right? I
really hate him.
Great guy.
I'm impressed by his Rosa Parks collection, if that means anything, but that's about it. I've never seen a white guy with so much Black history artifacts than that. Strange, really threw me off. I was like, oh, you have the jail that Martin Luther King signed into during the Selma March.
He doesn't do himself any favors sometimes, that's for sure. But he's a nice guy and I like him. But so I really just started writing about it and tweeting about it. And shortly after that, it went well enough to where I was able to leave my job and do it full time. So I spend about half the time creating content now. And then what it's allowed me to do on the back end of that is invest in a lot of great companies. So my brothers and I, we each have kind of our own different content verticals. Anthony, who you guys mentioned earlier, thought I was a twin with.
Yeah. Nick did. Okay.
Well, Nick, sorry.
We shamed him. Nick. We shamed Nick. We call him Nick the Mexican around here.
No, we're
going to net.
For legal reasons, we do not call him that.
But yeah, so we just create a bunch of content online now, right? And that's given us the ability to invest in a bunch of great businesses that want access to that distribution. So there's part of it that is just creating the content, and then the other 50% of the time is probably spent investing.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about, I've actually heard you talk with your brother about some of your strategies and some of the strategies that you've seen from professional athletes where, and this is something that a lot of people have done. We've done this as well, instead of relying on sponsorship. So like one of the stories you talk about is LeBron James, McDonald's, leaving McDonald's and going to the pizza thing. Instead of, and this is something that people that have worked in wealth management have known forever, but equity is a lot more valuable than actual dollars because of the time value of money, because it can increase without any actual work happening, all sorts of stuff, right? But the transition of athletes just signing a deal with, Glock, and I shoot Glock guns. Yeah. Instead of doing that, buying 2% of the company Glock and then promoting it on your own channels. And a lot of people, we've done that. We've got a hard seltzer that we've popped out. We've leaned more into our merchandising and stuff like that. It makes more sense, right? You're leveraging today when there's so much power in being an independent content creator that leveraging your own audience cuts out several middlemen, and it also keeps publishers out of your bullshit. Like, I don't think you should say that, or, the sponsors didn't really like that. Well, you know what? Fuck them.
What was the LeBron James thing? What did he flip to?
Oh, you've never heard this story? Oh, tell this story.
Yeah, so LeBron used to be sponsored by McDonald's and a bunch of other kind of fast food related stuff, right? So him and his business partner, Maverick Carter, I want to say it was maybe 2010, 2012, somewhere early in that range though, they canceled the sponsorship deal. They basically gave up whatever it was, maybe $8, $10, $12 million, somewhere in that range. And they bought 10%, I believe it was, in equity of Blaze Pizza. No one had heard of this thing at the beginning, right? I think someone brought it to Maverick and was like, hey, look, there's this startup food company who's looking for an investment. So Maverick convinced him to throw away the sponsorship that was actually paying him and instead write $1 million check into this business. And it blew up. I mean, they were doing less than $1 million in revenue, I think, when they invested, and now they're doing $400 or $500 million in revenue. So it was a massive, massive business.
It was Wetzel's Pretzels, those people.
Got it. Yeah.
California. What are they in? Fucking Pasadena or some shit like that, I think is where they're
What's Wetzel's Pretzels?
Oh, it's like
dude, they've exploded.
Huge pretzel company. It's like Auntie Annie's, but like a West Coast version of it.
Yeah.
They had already, the people that started that Blaze Pizza had already been running a business, a pretty successful one based on like they were one of the early adopters in using things like DoorDash and shit like that to get their product out. So with much less infrastructure than it would have taken to start an actual pizza plus delivery service, they were fucking already in the market.
Oh yeah.
Like you're using infrastructure that already exists to expand your footprint without actually having to spend more of your own money.
Mm-hmm.
So there's two things I think about that, right? One, the deal was so great for LeBron because not only did he obviously invested and gave them capital, but he got a sponsorship deal out of it too. So they returned some of the money to him in the form of a sponsorship. He owned a couple franchises outside of it, like actual physical locations. So now he's got real estate, et cetera. And he wrote $1 million check. I don't know how much they're worth, but I'm assuming it's worth at least $1 million or more. And then in my mind, right, we've transitioned. You talked more about equity. Like if you think about historically, athletes they used to just get sponsorship checks, right? Maybe they made a decent amount of money actually playing, but most of their money, especially NBA players, came from actual deals outside off the court. They were doing that for a long period of time. And then I think we transitioned over the last decade or 2 decades to doing these equity deals, right? Everyone hears about equity and they want it now. They think that, hey, maybe instead of giving me this check, I'll take equity in the brand. LeBron is obviously kind of the spokesperson for that. And a lot of other athletes have followed his suit. But I think what we're doing now is we're going to move into this arena where instead of just taking equity, I think that these athletes are starting to realize how big their audience is and how much money they already have, and just finding entrepreneurs to build these businesses with from the get-go, right? So if you take Tom Brady, he's a perfect example of what he's done. He started that NFT company Autograph last year. It's already a $4 billion business. And I don't know how much equity he owns in it, but he's one of the co-founders. So he obviously owns a decent portion of it. It was something that he started at zero. He literally partnered with an entrepreneur, funded part of the business, and then they went and built it. He has a massive distribution stream on social, obviously, and everywhere else. And then they can use him for really cheap kind of marketing. So it's a good deal for everyone involved. And I think that's the model that we're going to move to.
Yeah. Look, speaking of equity, we'll talk about the biggest one that happened since yesterday.
But I want to stay on this athlete thing before we move on to Elon. Jordan did this shit in the 90s with Nike, right? He was one of the first people to start taking equity in lieu of cash payments for things. And
does he have equity in Nike?
Yeah, he owned like 6% of Nike, I think.
He owns, he obviously owns a lot of the IP around Jordan brand, but he gets a percentage of revenue each year. And they've started actually pumping up the brand. People don't know this. They were very cautious about the brand for the last 2-3 decades. They're doing a lot of sales, obviously, but not nearly what they could considering their Nike. So the sales have like 2 or 3x over the last 2 years alone. And his checks are getting a hell of a lot bigger now. I think he gets, like 6.5% of all sales via royalty for the Jordan brand.
Shit.
Yeah, which is like,
it's massive.
A fuckload of money. I
mean, Kobe just signed. His estate did.
His estate did.
Just signed again with Nike. So are they hoping to do the same thing with Kobe?
I don't know. I don't know what their deal is. I mean, they obviously had an issue that came up with Vanessa and Nike, but it seems like everything's back on now. They're going to be donating some of the money from his shoes to their charity. I'm assuming they work something out. I don't know what the royalty structure is, though.
But Jordan started with the equity play a long time ago, and a couple of other people got in. I mean, LeBron got into it almost immediately when he got into the league. A lot of these dudes, superstars, come into the league with an entourage, and usually they suck. He happened to get pretty lucky, to be honest. I mean, the guys, 1 or 2 of the guys at least around him are pretty good at doing business.
Yeah.
For better or worse. But
he made them go to college and get business degrees, which was smart.
But this is for you, Joe. It's like extremely surprising to me that between 2012 and 2014, when social media got huge and anybody that was anybody just immediately had a huge personal following that they could communicate with directly. And I didn't see that many athletes jumping on board and getting involved in equity plays like that right off the bat. Like Kevin Durant, huge into it in Silicon Valley. There's a lot of dudes that are now, right? But there were some early adopters in the mid-2010s. Durant, Tom Brady did it with TB12 first, and then the NFT thing. A lot of guys have done this. Do you think do you have any thoughts on why more people haven't done it? Because you don't see a whole lot of huge brands coming out.
I have a theory on it, but go ahead.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have like some kind of complex thought process around it. I think just emotionally that people want to be handed money, right? Not necessarily write checks or given equity in something. They want cash today. And when you're as much cash as you can because you know your career is short in a lot of ways, then you're trained to do that, right? And that's what you optimize for. But ultimately, these athletes are the top 1% of everyone in the world. There's only a select few people that can actually go out and do these equity deals or start these businesses, because ultimately you have to be a pretty big name within a sport to gain that following or leverage that following, or you have to work really hard to build it, right? So there's guys like, I hate to use him as an example because I don't like TikTok, but Juju Smith-Schuster, right? Like he's built an incredible platform for himself. And it's not like he's the best player in the NFL, but he's leveraged the NFL and used it for himself to build a platform that he can rely on after retirement.
But there have been quite a few more people who are native to the social media platforms, whether it was Vine back in the day, TikTok, or one of the other ones, that have immediately jumped into, like as soon as they developed a large audience, they immediately jumped into monetizing that audience. And I feel like it's something that's so not easy, but such a natural process for an athlete to be able to do that, especially non-helmet actors, I guess.
Yeah, but the problem is, and this is my theory on it, you have to be good enough, like you were saying. You've got to be great enough to transcend. And the problem is with injuries in a lot of these sports, it's a fucking miracle that LeBron James hasn't had some crazy injury that derailed his career along the way, and he's still playing at such a high level at this age. It is almost unheard of, but there is very few of these guys who have been able to do it through the years. I mean, even Kobe missed a year with the Achilles.
Yeah, but you don't necessarily have to be the best player on the floor or on the field.
But if somebody's going to give you equity in a company, you do.
No, you just need the audience.
Right.
But the audience is a mixture of being very good at what you do and also entertaining.
You can get the audience without being the best, but it's just a little more difficult. You have to work harder at it.
Yeah.
But this is my problem with UFC and all these guys that complain, and Ngannou and all these other motherfuckers that complained about their pay and stuff. Now, I agree the UFC doesn't pay very well, and I think that's a problem for the sport. But when the challenger is getting paid more than the champion because the challenger is more entertaining, because they have a bigger audience and they're bringing more people to the till, that's the proof, right? Like, you don't necessarily have to be the best. You just have to be, there's a sliding scale. You got to be very good at what you do, but you also have to be entertaining. You can't be some boring slug on a fucking log.
No.
Nobody wants to engage with that shit.
But when it comes to, it depends, right? Like, obviously McGregor, that's why he brings in the big bucks, right? But I think like the situation with Ngannou is just, it's different. You guys know his story or no?
Yeah. He's you're talking about like coming over from Cameroon?
Coming from Cameroon, yeah. He basically, it was like 14-month journey to France. He got arrested 6 times, saw people die, tried to cross the border, the whole fucking nine. And I actually had him on my podcast, and he was basically like, dude, this isn't about money. I could have made $10 million extra dollars. He's like, I've sacrificed $10 million. I just want the freedom to be able to do whatever the hell I want. If I want to go box, I want to be able to go box. If I want to go do this, I want to be able to go do this. And the UFC doesn't offer that, but then they want to keep me in a contract like I'm an employee, right? I'm a contractor, but then they want to treat me like an employee when it comes to my actual contract. So I think like it depends on the individual, obviously. But yeah, it's no secret. Like McGregor, he wouldn't be getting title fights if he was any other fighter. You know what I mean? He hasn't performed well over the last few years. He hasn't won a fight in a couple of years now. He wouldn't be getting these major fights, but he's an incredible entertainer.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, maybe a better example is Henry Cejudo then, because he didn't deal with all the shit that Ngannou did. And maybe his complaint's the same. I hear a lot of guys that are professional fighters talk about that. And now I guess Dana's opened it up for grappling only stuff for certain guys. But still, like, I mean, I understand it. Do other sports league have rules like that? Like, if you're an NBA player, can you not play in another league simultaneously?
Well, the difference is they share revenue, right? So if you think about all the other leagues, they have unions. So every league, whether it's the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, MLS, whatever, they all get somewhere between like 48 and 52% of overall revenue. The players do, right? And then it's divided up via salary caps and all of that. The UFC doesn't have any of that. There's some reports. They're a public company now, so it's easier to tell kind of how much money they're actually making. It's a little less clear kind of how much each fighter is getting paid. You have to go add it up per fight and everything. But ultimately, there's reports that say they're paying out maybe 16, 17, 18% of total revenue to fighters, which is obviously drastically less than all the other sports leagues. Right. And now they're in this situation, right, where they're a public company. They have to maximize their profit and their revenue to shareholders. And they obviously don't want to give up 30 extra % of their revenue to fighters. So there's this weird dynamic where they're going to stick their foot in the ground and be like, hey, we're not going to do this. And UFC fighters, the only way it's going to change is if they create a union, which is very difficult to get everyone on the same page to do.
Yeah. Good luck with that. With
a bunch
fighters.
of dudes that hate each other and want to beat each other literally up.
Yeah, exactly.
Get them on the same page. Good luck.
Let's flop over to business here. I want to get into this Musk thing here.
He's a board member now.
Speaking of equity, he's a board member as of today, I guess. Looking at the filing, this went through March 14th. do you not have to say that you're a board member back then when this went through? And why?
No, he just got made a board member today.
So today,
yeah.
He acquired the equity back on the 14th, I guess, and then went public, and then he got made a board member today.
Yep.
Okay. So how is that going to change for Twitter? Because he's already asking questions to the audience here of like, would you like an edit button? The answer is yes to that, obviously.
No. Why would you want an edit button?
You ever misspell something and you can't go back?
I don't give a shit.
Too bad. Delete the tweet.
Yeah, delete it. Here's the problem with an edit button. You're going to like and retweet shit, and it's going to get changed.
Well, I'm sure there'll be some rule on it, right?
Who knows how they're going to handle that? But the other
there's one idea that you could put like a timer, right? You do like 2 minutes. 2 minutes, but still, like if you notice you have a mistake, just go delete it and retweet it. Yeah. Otherwise,
it's easy.
You're done.
Like if the purpose is to deal with typos and shit, nobody's going to make a big deal about you deleting your tweet. But if you just like write the N word 15 times, and be like, oh, misspelled the other word, and delete it. People are going to be fucking pissed off about that, obviously. And I think it's a really good idea to have a permanent record of stupid shit that especially journalists say. Well, I think that is very important.
Facebook caved to it, and they ended up having an edit button. I think Twitter will ultimately do the same. The question is whether or not they'll bring back Trump. That's trending right now, number 4 in America. What are your thoughts? Do you think he will?
I don't know if he'll bring back Trump. I think he's probably a positive catalyst for overall kind of reduction of censorship and the silencing that we've seen on social media. I believe that's what he tweeted out when he initially said, hey, I'm looking at Twitter, was that he was worried about kind of some of the censorship going. But, it's not just Twitter, right? This is every social media platform today where you run the risk of, if you say anything that's controversial at all, you run the risk of getting it deleted or removed or yourself canceled. And ultimately, like, you have to figure out some of these companies, obviously, like, where do you draw the line? We've seen plenty of stuff over the past year, 2 or 3 years now, that were conspiracy theories of some instance, right? Even if you take inflation, right? A topic that shouldn't nearly be as controversial as it is. We were told for months that it was transitory, that it wasn't as bad as it was. Then we were told that it was good for you in some instance, right? We were told that it was because of price gouging. We've been told all these things, right? And it's all been proven incorrect. We're at a 40-year high now. Gas prices are through the roof. Rents are up 25%. Wages are barely up. People are literally suffering out here in America. And no one's had to retract any of their statements, right? You can go back and look, like, all of this stuff is still out there. So who is the arbitrator of truth when it comes to this? I think that ultimately what Elon's going to do is he's going to try to implement some policy changes where, hey, if you have an opinion, that's great. This is America. You're allowed to say what you have to say in your opinion, and people can decide for themselves whether it's worthwhile listening to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Me personally, if you're going to go all the way and buy the company and stick to what you say, I think he has to, in a way. I mean, it was a president of the United States. I don't see a world in which you can change censorship and not have a president on there unless they said something as egregious as what Dan was saying earlier, you know? But I actually think he will. And now that he's the largest shareholder, he's going to kind of be able to do what he wants. And now is when shit gets fun. And he even posted a thing about it on Instagram. I don't know if you saw his Instagram post where he was just like, dude, if Twitter's trying to take you down, just buy Twitter, which is what he did. It's amazing. I wish he would buy Facebook as well. But I wonder how that's going to affect him posting about Tesla for the SEC. Do you know any rules on that?
I mean, he's already been reprimanded for this and told not to post about it again.
A bunch.
He's been told, I believe it said he has to run any tweet regarding Tesla's equity or share price or financials or anything like that through his general counsel before tweeting. He has obviously not listened to that rule. So we'll see what he does next. I think the interesting part to me is, like, this is good for Twitter. My brothers and I were talking about it the other day. And, like, if you're Twitter, I feel like you just have to own this. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to piss him off. The dude's the richest guy in the world. If he wants to buy the entire business, he can. He already when he invested, right, I think the stock since it got announced is up over 30-40%. He's added over $10 or $12 billion of enterprise value to the business, which they weren't able to do in the last decade, right? It's one of the most important social media networks in the world. And he's helped them out more in the past 3 days than they can in a decade. Yeah. So ultimately, I think, like, if you're him, we were joking. It's just like, make him the chief meme officer, right? Like, just say, hey, you're the CMO, you're the chief meme officer. You can sign off all your tweets as that, have fun with it. Like, no big deal. You're on the board. Like, have fun with it, because ultimately, if you don't, I think that's when he's going to start becoming less and less passive about it and more active. But the whole thing to me was funny when they claimed that he was a passive investor. It's like, dude, this guy owns like 3 financial instruments. It's like Tesla equity, a SpaceX equity, Bitcoin, Dogecoin, and that's it, right? If he invests $3 billion in something, he's going to want some type of control.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the market today, market's down currently 250 points, and Twitter's up 2 points.
Yeah, he's made about on his initial investment, he's made about $875 million, I think, in the last couple of days since the announcement, which is that's about 75% of the entire revenue that Twitter made last year.
Yeah, I think the company's up $950 million, or Elon Musk made $950 million since announcing.
875 is the last number I saw, but it's like they're definitely leaning into it. Within a day, with less than 24 hours, Agrawal announced that he was going to get a board seat, right? And then Jack Dorsey just retweeted Agrawal's fucking tweet about it, saying like, "Oh, I'm happy to have him on board." I have a theory that this is going to reinvigorate Jack Dorsey in Twitter. I think he's got an ally in Twitter now because I think he was really trying to do some shit over there and was getting boxed out by the fucking corporate interests. And,
I think Jack Dorsey got tired of the same bullshit they've been pulling for years, and he didn't want to be part of it anymore.
I agree. But
I mean, if you think of everything that he's interested in, right? He's one of the biggest proponents of Bitcoin in the world. Yeah. And what Twitter has done from a censorship perspective basically was against all of the ethos that he believed in on the crypto side.
You could tell, like, the last couple of months before he announced that he was leaving and shit. I mean, he's still on the board, but announced he was leaving as CEO. We talked about it on the show yesterday. He just looked like a browbeaten man. Like he was this was something that he created, and it's just been fucked over, and he's been boxed out of it, and he was just done. And then he left.
If you guys were in charge of Twitter for a day, what was the first thing you would do?
Bots. I'd wipe out the bots in a second because I can't tell what's real and what's fake on there. And I feel like every social issue, no matter what it is, if it's transgender or Black Lives Matter or Democrats, Republicans, no matter what it is, I feel like there is bots that are immediately chiming in with misinformation on both sides, Republican and Democrat, or whatever side you are on whatever social issue, to create chaos and to cause confusion and infighting on the network so that people are angrier every day and that it divides the country every single day. And I think if you could separate them, which you know goddamn well they can, behind the paywall, they know who's a bot and who's not. They could wipe that out tomorrow if they wanted. However, that would affect their quarterly reports when they have to report to their shareholders of like, hey, we took care of all the bots, but it brought down our users by 12 million. That would severely fuck their stock, and I think that's why they don't do it. I also think that's why Facebook, during the Trump election, when they said Russia had paid for ads and everything, that they paid for ads. Like, you could have fixed that as soon as they went and slapped down a credit card to pay for the fucking ads. You chose to look the other way. I think cleaning that up in the background would be easily my number one with a bullet, just getting rid of bots.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think getting rid of the bots would be, I don't know if I would say it would be easy, but I do think there are ways to program around it. So
I got 2 rules that you can implement and cut out 50% of them, right? If you respond to my tweet with the same profile picture as me, you're nuked. You're done. You're off the platform. Yeah. If you respond within a second, you're nuked. You're done. You're off the platform. Yep. That would take out like 50% of the bots immediately, I believe. Yeah.
And then you could run just a very simple SQL search algorithm that identifies common misspellings that are used repeatedly in the same post or the exact same phraseology used in the same post over and over again. So if you get on one of these hot button topic posts on a very popular Twitter account, you'll see several hundred, maybe several thousand comments, but 40 or 50 of them are like identical.
Yeah.
And that's not hard to find.
No, those are easy.
The second thing I would do is make the algorithm open source. I would put the algorithm out there and let the internet is unfucking defeated. They will find a way to make it as best as possible. They will also expose holes. Like Jack Dorsey, people think he's like some evil genius, probably because of the weird goatee, to be honest. Like, we've associated that in our brains from Star Trek with evil. Because your evil twin is with the goatee and a mustache.
He looks weird, though. I mean, it's just, it got to a point where it looked like he was an Antifa member.
I don't think any of these dudes are necessarily, well, the Agro guy, he might be a piece of shit, but I don't think most of these dudes are like evil geniuses or anything. I just think I think things get away from you. It's like Oppenheimer, right?
They're in a very difficult position, right? You know, everyone wants to chime in and just say they're doing the wrong thing, but ultimately, like, they're in a very difficult position. They're getting congressional hearings on one end that's demanding they shut down their business or break up because they believe there's misinformation. And other people obviously believe in free speech and want everything on there. So they're put in this weird position of like, how do you become the arbitrator of truth? And you have to develop these policies and these procedures and put in place and follow them. And ultimately, like, there's always going to be a tug of war of what's important and what's not. But I agree. Like, I don't think any of them maybe without one or two in context, like, are bad people and they want things to go the wrong way.
I agree with that. And I think open sourcing the algorithm helps because you allow the internet to immediately identify problems. And if somebody is a bad actor, people are going to expose them. I'm not talking about at corporate Twitter. I'm talking about if somebody writes a fucking white paper on why this should be changed in the algorithm and how and these affects, somebody out there on the internet will figure out if they're a bad actor and fucking expose them, right? It's pretty easy. The last thing that I would think about doing is make people identify themselves. Like, you have to identify who you are as a human being before you can fucking post on our website. Now, it might not be front facing. It might not have to be your actual name on the account, but Twitter as an entity would have to verify who you are and know that you're a person for a number of reasons. One, Facebook tried to do all this shit. They brought in outside consultants for their algorithm and blah, blah, blah. And they got, after the congressional hearings in, I think, 2017 and 18, they got a lot of heat for this and that. And they tried to tailor an algorithm that would fucking get rid of disinformation, right? But they paid zero attention to all of the fucking child sex trafficking on their website. And that could have been easily taken care of just by making people identify themselves in the back end. Now, I'm not sure. Go ahead.
No, so I was just going to add a point about, like, it'll take care of itself if you make this stuff public, right? So one of the perfect examples in my mind is, you guys know OpenSea, right? The NFT marketplace.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys saw this a while ago, but everything's obviously on the blockchain and it's transparent and immutable. It can't be changed, right? So there was someone who found out basically through blockchain transactions that the head of product at OpenSea was insider trading. And what he was doing was, OpenSea has a front page, right? So every time an NFT gets posted on the front page of, hey, look at this NFT, the prices immediately go up because you're basically marketing it to hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people directly on the front page of the largest NFT marketplace in the world. So what he was doing was he basically would know internally what products or what NFTs were about to go up there, and then he would go buy them and then sell them after the price went up. So insider trading throughout the company, and it was transparent because it was on the blockchain, right? So if you open up some of this stuff and you start to open source the algorithms, then people are going to start not only to figure out who the bad actors are and things like this, but they should be able to change it to optimize what they're looking for, right? If I come on Twitter to look for news, why should I get fed memes and vice versa, right? I would argue that everyone needs some memes in their life, but ultimately, like, you should get to decide how your algorithm works, because why should Twitter be in charge of not only how we what we see, but really how we think, right? And ultimately, they're able to craft the narrative, not only Twitter, but other social media networks too, because their algorithms are determined proprietary and no one can know what they are.
Yeah, it's a real problem. I mean, we've seen this past week with BlackRock, and we've heard it from WEF quite a bit as well. And you see it in the market where renters are becoming a bigger part of the population. Home owners are becoming a much smaller part of the population. And it's this, in some cases like WF, it's on purpose. BlackRock, maybe it's on purpose, or maybe it's just because of corporate greed that they're pricing homes out of the market for people, and now they have to rent. I don't know it doesn't matter if it's a bad actor or not. The result is the same, right?
What are you guys seeing down there in Texas from an inflation standpoint?
Boy, where do we start? How much time do you have?
I'm closing on a house in 2 weeks, and we got kind of lucky. We got it right when it came on the market, but I still am paying like 7% over, and it's already an inflated market.
Yeah,
my house has over doubled what I paid for it in 2 years.
Yeah, we bought a commercial property about a year ago, and it's it's already doubled in value. since we bought it. So.
Yeah, the other part of this too that I keep seeing is because we're having another child, so we're looking for another bedroom. Is a lot of places that are getting bought will go up for rent about 2 days after closing, and you're like, all right, who is this that is able to turn this around that quickly and get this back up as a rental if it isn't a company like BlackRock or somebody else? Because normal people can't really do it that fast and turn it around that fast without having the proper paperwork and lawyers and all that stuff in place. Typically people are lucky if they have one rental income, let alone multiple. And I'm seeing that pop up a lot in Austin, where a lot of these houses are gone and then they're up for rent and the rents are sky high, like you were saying earlier. And you're able to get it. Like, out where we live in Dripping Springs, which is just outside of Austin. And it's, a lot of people who want to get out of the city and have a little bit of land, live out there. And it's getting sucked up in record time. And it's being re-rented at, I would say close to Los Angeles values. And I'm just saying this because I lived in LA for a while. But I mean, you're looking at $4,500, $5,500. Giorgio, you're looking out there. What are the rates like for you right now?
He's on a delay.
No, he's on a delay. Why is anybody
really
listening to that makes no sense to me.
So what's up about rental values? What
What are you looking at right now out there? How high are these properties going?
Oh, they're insane. Like I'm lucky to be locked in. My landlord is my neighbor, so they got me at a decent rate. But if I were to try to move, it would be $3,000 for 2 people.
For a 2-bedroom or a 1-bedroom?
2-bedroom.
Okay. Yeah. So you're looking at Los Angeles prices.
Yeah.
So just quickly on the numbers, right? Inflation came in last month at 7.9%, which is the highest it's been in 40 years. Most people don't know this, but they actually changed the methodology of how the inflation was calculated in 1980, I believe. So if you look at the pre-1980 methodology, it's much higher than 10%, right? It's much higher.
It's like 11.5%, I think, right now, based on the old calculation.
So even if you look at the 7.9 though, shelter is the single biggest component of the monthly CPI right now. It accounts for 33% of the index. Guess what number they have shelter at increasing year over year? 4.7%. That is so far off, it's ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
Rentals are showing 18% up year over year. Home ownership is real estate rates are showing up over 19% year over year. So however you want to look at it, that number is wildly understated. And I think what we're going to see is sure, we're going to get into these next few months now. I think it's maybe May. Maybe it's May where we start to get that year over year valuation, right? So you can't compound it 6, 7, 8% year over year. That would be absolutely insane. So we're going to start to see these numbers climb down a little bit and everyone's going to rejoice and cheer and say, hey, look, here we go. But if you go up 6% a year and then you go up 6% again the next year, that's really bad, right? Inflation is actually much, much worse, even if the number is actually declining. So again, I think these numbers are not only wildly understated, but you have to think about the average American. I always think about if we're in an echo chamber of some degree. I talk to a lot of people who, sure, they're investors, maybe they own crypto, but they have some kind of exposure to different asset classes. But you have to remember that 45% of Americans don't own investable assets. They don't own a single stock. They don't own a single bond. They don't own anything. Anything that holds
They don't own
money.
their home anymore either.
They don't own their home. They literally don't own a single investable asset. 45% of Americans.
Yeah, that's by the way, I've said this on the show before, but owning home ownership, the equity that you build in your home is how the vast majority of the middle class earns wealth during their lifetime, right? They don't. Yeah. It's not a checking account. It's been supplemented now by 401ks and shit, but primarily the largest amount of wealth that the people in this room right now are going to generate over their lifetime is the equity in their home. And now, the rate of people who own their homes has dropped by about 14% in the last 10 years.
And it's only going to drop because the interest rates are going up, Joe.
Well, and think about it in this context, right? People complain on Twitter all the time, why are you complaining so much about inflation, right? Anyone that has any sort of wealth loves inflation because all of their assets go up, right? They have most of their money, majority of their money in investable assets, and those climb in value during inflationary periods. People, millionaires, billionaires, whatever, they don't spend a large portion of their income on shelter, on gas, on food, on all these other things, right? They own businesses, they own assets that appreciate in value. So one, they love it. But if you think about the average American, not only do they not own investable assets, they don't get to appreciate in that, but their money is being devalued away. Their wages are not rising at a fast enough pace to make up for that. So they're losing income year after year. But then you look at home ownership, the prices of real estate today, the average home in the US is now over $500,000, right? So if you don't own own investable assets. We knew pre-pandemic, maybe it went up a little bit during the pandemic with stimulus checks, but pre-pandemic, the average bank account for a household in the US had like $5,000 in it, $6,000 in it, right? So if you have $5,000 or $6,000 in your bank account, you don't own investable assets, and a home is $500,000 in the United States, how are you gonna survive, right? You literally cannot buy a home. You're forced to rent from corporations like BlackRock and others, and it puts you in this spiral downwards where you literally can't protect yourself. And it's one of the reasons why, like, I firmly believe that financial education, sure, around the world, but in the United States, is a national emergency. I think it should be one of the forefront things that everyone is talking about, not only government, but talk shows, radio shows, whatever. It's one of those things that like needs to improve dramatically. Otherwise, I think we're headed to a really bad period.
Yeah, we're a little fucked. I mean, that's what, but public schools, I think we talked about this yesterday as well. Public schools aren't designed to get you ready for life. You know what I mean? They're not designed to teach you about how to achieve upward mobility for yourself and your children. They're designed to make you competent workers that are satisfied with what you have. Educated, but not too much, right? And the problem I have with this idea that from the WEF that you're going to own nothing and be happy is that, as I've said before, and first of all, ownership is one of the rights of man. You should Google the phrase rights of man and then go fucking read that shit. Just property rights in general, how that works from English common law and from the Magna Carta to today, how that's evolved and what it means for you. You know what I mean? To be able to build your own stuff, your own wealth. That's what America was founded on in the first place. We're seeing it with the rental properties. We're seeing the rate of renters to homeowners go drastically in one direction. That is not good. And as I've said, if you're not able to build equity in your home, if you're a middle class, but if you're making like $30,000 to $100,000 a year and you can't build equity in your home, you are fucked with inflation going on like this. Now, with Twitter and other social media platforms, we're now renting the place where we go to share ideas. Like, you don't own that fucking space anymore. You have no say in it. Not only are you not an owner of it, you're not even a fucking shareholder in it. You know what I mean? I don't mean like a literal shareholder of Twitter financially. I mean, you have no say in anything that goes on there. Right?
Yeah.
So they build these rule sets that are vague as fuck. Nobody can figure out what the actual rules are or to whom they apply, and intentionally so, I'm sure, on Twitter's part. So whenever the company decides what is true or not, and they're like arbitrarily name themselves the arbiter of truth, then people start getting banned for saying things that are like demonstrably true, and all these conspiracy theories from a year ago become truth now, and you know, Washington Post, Twitter itself, Facebook had to admit that their fact checkers are just opinionists. All these companies and the media and all these social media companies are now just admitted that they lied about all that shit with no recourse. Like nobody is suffering from the fact that they pumped us full of lies, right, and kicked people off their platform. So now we are literally renting the space where human beings go to crowdsource information, share ideas, and come up with solutions, right? That's really a really bad thing. Like, well, it's bad in real estate for sure. It's really bad in finance and real estate, but it's way worse the fact that we can't fucking share ideas anymore.
Well, if you look at what Meta's done, right, Facebook and Instagram, they came out and they said that they're going to allow, maybe they reverse course on this, but I know initially they said that they were going to allow post on their social media websites that urged violence against Russians. Right. Yeah. So if you supported the war and you were a Russian, then you were allowed to post. People were allowed to threaten them and post things urging violence against them. Right. And why should that be the case? Right. Like, who decides that is the case, that war is unjust and other things? There's plenty of other wars going on in the world. Right. I don't hear anyone complaining about what's going on between Saudi Arabia and Yemen. Right. Yeah. I don't hear anyone complaining about that.
Well, that's because all the bombs that Saudi Arabia is dropping on Yemen came from the United States. That's why.
Yeah, exactly. But so my point really is, right, like, I'm not the smartest person in the world on this. I don't think a lot of other people are, but ultimately this is a really difficult job. But the fact is, like, there's people on both sides of the political aisle that are fucking nuts, right? Like 100%. And some people are unwilling to admit that, but I think most people will admit that, right? Like, I think everyone just sees, hey, look, there's probably like a center here. Maybe we disagree on some kind of core things when it comes to free speech and other things like that and factors of that. But like, I think naturally people want to be decent humans. And I think that ultimately what we're doing is we're driving people further away, because this disagreement is allowing people to get more frustrated and dig their heels deeper in the ground on social media.
Right. There was somebody, I don't remember who it was, wrote an article about Twitter's algorithm, and it's called Rage Algorithm or something like that, I think was the title of it. And you actually brought this up a couple of years ago, just in passing, and that's what made me go look into it. You said it seemed like every time I log onto Twitter, I only see shit that pisses me off.
People I hate. Yeah.
That can't be a mistake.
It's not.
Well, it turns out it's definitely not, right? Because they ended up having to admit that they were doing that. And maybe again,
I didn't know it though until I watched that Netflix doc on it, and I was just going through it as a normal person every day, and I was like, God damn it, why is this Alyssa Milano, Barbara Streisand? There was weird politicians. That Brooklyn dad guy was always showing up. But
I think maybe Hanlon's razor. Let's say that it's incompetence and not malice, right? Maybe they just wanted to expose everybody to a Brett. You don't want it to be an information silo where you're only seeing your own opinions all the time. That's a decent idea, but when it's a popularity contest between opinions and not a meritocracy of the actual reality of the world, right? So it's not. There's no useful filter through which people like that or fucking Marjorie Taylor Greene, for example's opinions are being filtered before they're posted on here. Then you're not only are you not getting real information, your idea of what, from your perspective, what a liberal is, and from a liberal perspective, what a conservative is completely fucking warped. And now any conversation you guys have is going to be rooted in that.
Yeah.
And it can never go anywhere. It's like fucking Hatfields and McCoys trying to like talk to each other. Like, no, you're fucking sorry. You're Romeo. You're not from the right family. I can't.
And my biggest problem was these are people that I don't follow. So I would open up Twitter and it was just filled with people I don't follow, jammed in my face that I hated all day. And that's where I thought of this, where I was just like, all right, this has got to be some fucking algorithm. And that Netflix doc came out and they confirmed it. And I was like, oh, well, shit. So what do? You go back and block everybody and or mute them or whatever? Or do you try to move on with your day? But I tried that initially, and then it just filled with more people that I still didn't like. There's this one fucking guy that worked in the White House that keeps popping up on my feed, and all he does is tweet all fucking day long. It's an old man.
Ron Klain?
As you guys chat, I guarantee you if I look at, but here's the thing. I keep muting everybody and more people pop up. It's fucking whack-a-mole. Well,
I was going to say, the one thing I would add is that I don't think most people realize how good the algorithms are, right? People complain and they say, hey, look, Facebook is listening to me, right? You've ever seen an ad on your phone after a conversation with someone and it pops up and you say, they definitely were listening to my conversation. And there certainly have been things in the past where they've used limited capabilities on their microphone for testing and stuff like that. But ultimately, they're not listening. What it is the data is so good from their algorithm that they're able to target it, right? So they track you and they're able to know, hey, look, he was with this person. Their phones were right next to each other for 30 minutes, an hour long. We're going to cross-reference the data on both of their cookies, and we're going to realize what they want to look at, right? And there's obviously more nuance to it and some more detail around that. But ultimately, it's just the algorithm doing what it does best. And most people don't realize how powerful that is. They literally can dictate exactly not only what you're seeing, but literally what you're thinking by presenting it to you in a compelling way and being that first mover where that's what you see first from a knowledge standpoint.
Right.
Yeah, because I just opened it up right now just to see what it was, right? I mean, I literally just live on air here. So Anna Navarro is up first in my feed. I don't follow Anna Navarro. I fucking hate Anna Navarro.
I don't know who that is.
She's one of the CNN correspondents. I think she might be she's been on CNN. I believe she's on The View now. But this is retweeted by a Russian, and then hashtag Antifa is in here. I follow neither of them. Next up is Christy Turnipseed, or Turnipseed, Turnipseed, that's it. I don't follow her either. You got an interesting
feed, man.
I don't follow any of these people.
I open my Twitter. I'm still seeing memes of Will Smith and Chris Rock slapping each other.
Yeah, so it's all people that I hate. It's all shit with like Antifa. I don't follow one single one of these. Ross Bowen, I follow, Andrew Schultz, and then that's it. There's 20 other people on here in my feed that I just do not follow, and it's just filled with hatred over and over and over again. I hope Elon goes in there and says, look, we're changing this right now. Because with Facebook, at least you have to follow the person to see their shit. Otherwise, it would just be The Rock drinking Zoa all goddamn day long in everybody's feed and telling everybody that, oh, don't worry about the 36 carbs in this thing. I drink it. And it's like, no, you don't. You have 4% body fat. You don't fucking do that shit. But that's what it would be if there wasn't some control on it or based on people you like. This, to me, should be against Twitter. Now, I'm not going to be one of those people who's like, I'm going to fucking delete Twitter. No, it's the best source of news. And it gives you the news the fastest you could possibly get it. Therefore, I go there for news. So I'm not going to delete it.
You have to protect yourself, right? And you guys are already doing that by having a podcast with an RSS feed, right? You have the ability to move that other places. And sure, you could get taken off Spotify or Apple Podcasts or something like that. But ultimately, you have the ability to own that audience. And it's the same thing with the newsletter. And one of the main reasons why I started that was I don't know what the fuck's going to happen. Do I think I'm going to get kicked off Twitter ever? No, I don't ever say anything reckless enough or stupid enough or wrong enough that I would imagine I would get kicked off. But again, you don't know. I doubt the president of the United States thought he was going to get kicked off. And ultimately, you have to protect yourself, right? So newsletters are one way to do that, where you actually own the email address. You can do that through podcasts, and you can do that through other things. But ultimately, I think what people need to do is they need to just understand where this can go, right? We've seen it with my one concern, right, is obviously social media, but on a bigger scale, it's banking, right? I spend a lot of time talking about Bitcoin specifically. There's thousands and thousands of cryptocurrencies out there now, and I think most people would admit that 99.9% of them are absolute bullshit and just a waste of time and money and effort. But Bitcoin certainly is proving to be an important piece of technology when you see what's going on around the world, right? So if you look at Canada, they were protesting, which is their right. And they were basically causing an inconvenience to Canada and the government. And they had all of their banking providers shut down access to their accounts, right? They literally took away their money. And then you start to think about other things. Where is the next step, right? So central bank digital currencies have been announced and are gaining traction in a lot of countries throughout the world. China, for example, is going to announce one or has announced one. The US, I don't think they're going to be that far behind. I think that they're going to roll it out and say, hey, look, this is really good from a digital adoption standpoint. It reduces friction. You don't need a bank account, right? It increases the access to people. But ultimately, what you're doing is you're giving up a lot more of that freedom financially and the personal financial sovereignty back to the state, back to the government. And I think that's a terrible decision because, like, let's just play an example here, right? If you have EBT now, right? So the cards that enable you to get food. Yep. Most people don't know this, but it expires in a year, right? So if you have $500 on your card, if you don't use it, right? If you don't buy bread, if you don't buy all this other stuff, so you already can only buy things that are perishable, right? So you have to go buy them, food, milk, whatever it is. If you don't use it in a year, it gets deleted. You no longer have access to this. What if they do that to your stimulus checks? What if they do that to your paycheck, right? What if they say, hey, look, you're overweight. We don't want you eating that food anymore. What if we only want you spending your money on this? What if they deny you access to things, right? And my point is, some of that sounds extreme and absurd right now, but ultimately when you move to this digital standard of money, it opens up the floodgates for a million other things, right? There's personalized monetary policy, right? Where if you've done something wrong or you have a different financial picture than someone else, now we can offer you a different interest rate, right? This person may pay 2%, you may pay 5%. And there's a bunch of kind of different things that can be opened up off of this. But I think ultimately what I'm trying to say is that we're moving to a world where personal sovereignty over your financial self and everything else is becoming much more important.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's since the mid 70s we've had a fiat currency, right? Which means it's not backed by any actual commodity. The US dollar is valued by world markets, essentially. And we have a pretty good upper hand being the world's reserve currency. We have a pretty good upper hand with the amount of stuff we import and export. That helps us out quite a bit. But that shit can change really fast. And as we saw in Canada, it wasn't even people who were doing the protesting. They started to GoFundMe to pay for food and gas, not to pay for weapons and bombs to attack people, to pay for food and gas because it's in the middle of winter in Canada. Right? And people who donated to that, the list was leaked, right, by some hacker. Mm-hmm. And the government of Canada weaponized that information and started shutting down people's bank accounts for putting in $100 so dudes that were protesting could buy gas. They shut down their fucking bank account for that.
Yep.
That has to be impossible, right? I mean, libertarians would like this conversation because they don't like the idea of the government having any kind of say over currency. It's like we tried that. It's like leaving your kid at home over the weekend and they burn the fucking house down. You've lost our trust, and you're never going to get it back. So decentralization is kind of the only way.
Did the kid die in the fire though? Because if he died, then I kind of feel like it took care of itself.
If he was insured,
okay,
that would be fine. But yeah, I mean we've reached a point now where the governments of the world have shown their hand. Like they will use this against you if given the opportunity. And the only way to fucking win that game is to not play it. So divest from the US dollar and start putting your money in crypto, right? There's no other way to fucking do this.
Yeah, you're huge into Bitcoin. Is there anything else besides Bitcoin and Ethereum that you play around with?
Just Bitcoin.
Just Bitcoin.
Yeah.
That's it. No Ethereum?
Yeah. I mean, I own some stuff that was either gifted to me or I've held for a long period of time. But no, I made a conscious decision, me and my brothers years ago, to basically start denominating things in Bitcoin. And we moved a large percentage, the majority of our financial picture, total net worth into Bitcoin, and have basically been doing that for years. And it was the same thesis, right? Of just like, we think that it's going to be extremely important. If you think about the picture too, right? So everything's valued off supply and demand. This is like the 30-second kind of pitch on why ultimately I think this is going to be super valuable. So we've already talked about kind of the financial sovereignty and the personal sovereignty aspect of this, where it's going to be extremely important to have access personally to your financial picture and your financial wealth. Ultimately, though, the dynamics are really enticing and interesting because there's only going to be 21 million, right? It's written in the code. 19 million of them have already been mined. So 19 million of the 21 million are already in existence in circulation. What we've seen at the retail level is there's certainly an institutional buyer now, for sure. But on the retail level, people are just dollar cost averaging into this asset. If you look in the chart of people that are holding Bitcoin from a retail perspective, smaller traders, just individuals like me and you guys, we are continuing to buy Bitcoin at an alarming rate. Maybe it dips a little bit during bear markets and maybe it accelerates a little bit during bull markets, but ultimately it has continued to climb at a rapid pace. So that's one good underlying fundamental. About 17% of Bitcoin, they believe, has been lost, right? All the Bitcoin supply. People lost their keys. People don't have access to it anymore, whatever. So that reduces some supply for sure. 85% of Bitcoin, give or take, depending on kind of the day, hasn't moved in 3 months. And about 65% of Bitcoin hasn't moved in a year, right? So people are literally just holding it. And I think that's extremely important because you can tell all of this publicly. They have on-chain metrics, right, that give you the ability to look into this. It's like if you were able to tell from stocks, right, instead of listening once a quarter to an earnings report and being able to tell exactly how much money the company made, exactly what their margins look like, how many stores they're opening, all these different things, you can tell it real time on the blockchain 24/7. So it's the most transparent market in the world. And you have this ability from a supply and demand perspective to look at it and say, hey, this is when it looks really enticing. This is when it looks less enticing, right? But ultimately, when you just think about what's necessary, if the supply side of the equation is fixed, with the US dollar, that's the opposite, right? They can literally print money. I still don't think that the majority of US citizens know that the government can just print money, but that's besides the point.
Well,
right?
I've been telling them every single day.
He's been saying it every single day on the show.
80% of all US currency was printed in the last 24 fucking months. 80%.
It's insane.
And,
yeah.
so wait, and Joe, real quick, since you brought it up, what's to stop Bitcoin from changing that number from 21 million to 28 million?
There's no Bitcoin organization that can do that. It's in the code. It's 21 million and that's it.
So the beauty of Bitcoin, right, is that everyone would have to agree on this, or over 50%. And Bitcoin is the most decentralized network in the world, is why it has so much value, right? It's the most not only transparent, but it's the most defensible network in the world because there are millions of individuals that are running computers basically at their house, right? Or their place of business or elsewhere, businesses and individuals that are defending the network, right? By solving mathematical equations throughout the day. And that is what makes Bitcoin so valuable because it cannot be attacked by a nation state, right? So if the United States, if China, if someone else, China literally overnight said, hey, you guys cannot mine Bitcoin anymore here, right? One night they just decided that and moved everyone out, shut everyone down that night and moved. About 50% of the hash rate, which is basically, you can think of the computing power, went offline, and now it's reached an all-time high again. And the US was the biggest beneficiary of that. So ultimately there could be government cooperation and it literally couldn't be shut down. And that's the best aspect of it. No one can change the code because it's so decentralized. No one can shut it down because it's so decentralized. And
I mean, theoretically you could, but if you're able to coordinate between millions of people to get them all to agree on one thing, good fucking luck. I mean,
that's really my point, right?
Even to be able to identify who they are in the fucking first, they would have to present themselves for this.
It is technically possible, but necessarily impossible.
Yeah.
I would say. But yeah, so then when you think about the supply and demand side, which is what I was speaking about earlier, if you know the supply side, right? And again, with the US dollar, we have no idea. But with Bitcoin, it's a certainty, right? It's written in the code. It's math. we know exactly how much supply is coming to the market every minute, every hour, every day, whatever, right? And we know that for certain, then all you have to worry about is the demand side. Is demand going to continue to increase for this asset? And my guess and my bet is that not only from an institutional perspective, for sure, we've already seen that nation states are making it legal tender. We've seen some of the biggest private equity firms in the world now trading it. We've seen Blackstone now interested in it, right? Clients want this, but also at a retail level. I think people are going to continue to see the value in this. And again, if you only have to worry about the demand side, it makes the idea and the thought process behind investing in it much more simple.
Yeah. Now, so let's get into the retail part before we get out of here, because it's super interesting to me. The U.S. government's forming some kind of fucking committee to look into taxing cryptocurrency, and it's not the first time, but this is the most serious advance I've seen by any government anywhere to start taxing unrealized gains. I don't know if I don't know if any of the other, because most banana republics are tax havens, right? Like they're robbing other people. They're not necessarily robbing you through taxes like our government does. Taxing unrealized gains is something that's a pretty easy conversation to shut down. Like, we haven't made any actual money on this. This isn't real yet. But when you're running a wallet that can immediately transfer your Bitcoin into USD coin, right, for example, and you can use a fucking actual debit card to spend that money in real time. How do you adjudicate that situation? I don't know how to do it. I understand. I don't think the government should be taking anybody's money, because like it's weird to me that I get robbed on a routine basis by the government, and then they use the money they've stolen from me not to build roads and shit, but to like start wars and all this other bullshit. Some that I had to go fight. I'm not thrilled about any of that, but I do understand the idea of taxation. So once it becomes a realized gain, then it's kind of free game in our system of government, but the lines are very blurred here. And
I think there's two parts to this, right? The taxing unrealized gains is essentially a non-starter. It's probably one of the dumbest things that politicians have come up with in a long time. It's completely irrational, and I'll give you two ideas of why. So if you look at the average person, right? They own a home, as you guys mentioned before, and as we were talking about, maybe that's appreciated 25% in the last year, right? So that unrealized capital gains, they don't have that money. It's not tangible value. They literally live in the house, right? It's an asset that they live in and they use every day from a utility perspective. They don't have the ability to pay the government a tax on that. They probably some of these people have $5,000 in their bank account, right? From the median account perspective. So they don't have the ability to do that. And then even if you take wealthier people, right? Say you build a business, you're the founder of a company, you raise money and your valuation starts to increase. You found product market fit, and next thing you know, you're $1 billion business within 3 years. You may own $500 million on paper, right? But you probably haven't taken a salary. You probably don't have any substantial income from that perspective. And what are you supposed to liquidate your shares in the business?
Well, that's what
not
Elon
optimal
Musk
for
did
anyone.
6 months ago, right?
He had to, right? Because he had a tax bill that was coming that was $11 billion, the most anyone has ever paid in history. And that still wasn't enough for some people, right? They literally said that is still not enough. And the whole idea is that this is not a zero-sum game, right? Elon Musk, he's paying $11 billion because he created a lot of value, right? He employs thousands and thousands of people. He created the preeminent company within electric vehicles, right? EV. He literally built the entire industry here in the United States. So would you rather him pay 12 billion? Would you rather him pay nothing? Would you rather those companies not exist, right? Like, I don't think there's the perfect answer, but ultimately there's obviously value in that. And when it comes to crypto and regulation, like, this is obviously an important topic and a big topic because some people think it's make or break for part of the industry, right? I don't think that Bitcoin specifically is going away anytime soon, regardless of what happens from a regulatory perspective. But ultimately, I think the people that are going to succeed the best, and what the United States should do as the leader in a lot of these categories, if they want to maintain that position as kind of the dominant leader within the world from an innovation perspective, people want to come to the United States to build companies right now, right? It is literally the best place to go and do that, not only from a freedom perspective, but a regulation perspective and elsewhere. So I think what they need to do is, you don't have to be the most crypto friendly, but you have to be very clear about what your regulation is, right? There can't be any ambiguity around kind of what may or may not happen. It has to be very clear, and then you have to let people make the decision from there. Obviously, I think that they should probably be more pro crypto than less. And there's certain states and cities that have done this. I live in Miami, which has not only started to tailor policies towards crypto companies and mining companies and stuff like that, but they're advocating for and rooting for people to come build businesses here, right? And I think that makes a huge difference when you just feel like the government is on your side, right? And it sounds kind of silly to say, but there's a lot of places in the U.S. that doesn't feel like that.
No, I've actually spoken to Suarez about this in person. He came to do an event here, a year ago or something.
Yeah,
I don't remember when that was, but I mean, they did. It wasn't just about bringing tech to Miami and embracing crypto and shit. It was about what could be done for both parties, right? And first they did increase the revenue coming into the city by a lot, and a modest amount of that went to do things like they've effectively ended veteran homelessness in Miami, in the city of Miami. Like it's low enough where it's a percentage point and not a full percent at this point. There's a lot of good things that can happen when you embrace, why would you not embrace an emerging technology? You know what I mean? Like, especially if you
can't tax it. Especially with crypto, why embrace it if you can't tax it if the government can't make any fucking money off it?
The city of Miami owns a fuckload of cryptocurrency.
Yeah, and why is that, by the way? So with Miami in particular, I've got a lot of friends who are moving there who are big in the crypto space. Why Miami versus everywhere else?
Well, I think it's exactly that with Mayor Suarez is he has just been open, right? And he is actively rooting for people to come build businesses there. And if you think about other places, specifically New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, places like that, they are doing the opposite, right? They want to not only tax you as much as they can, but they want to make it as difficult for you as possible from a regulation standpoint and so forth. So what Mayor Suarez has done a really good job at, in my opinion, is he has just opened the floodgates and say, hey, look, we are a city of entrepreneurship. We want you guys to come here. We want innovation to take place in our city. And we've seen that happen, right? And now you have the ability to move wherever the hell you want in the world from remote work and other things like that. And we're seeing companies like Blackstone, like FTX, like all these other places that are at the forefront of a lot of these things open up offices here in Miami. And we'll see what happens from a government perspective. He has offered his employees, I think, on a city level, the opportunity to get paid in Bitcoin. Yep. He himself has taken paychecks in Bitcoin, right? So he is obviously kind of putting his money where his mouth is, and not just being all talk, which I think is helpful. But ultimately, I think the biggest thing is it's just a positive environment. You know what I mean? It feels different. I've lived in New York, I've lived in Miami now, and it just feels way different from an entrepreneurship perspective of how you're treated from a government.
Yeah, well, Eric Adams is not doing a great job. He's remasked 2 to 4 year olds.
Yeah.
And they made an advertisement. It was like a pro Disney advertisement. Oh, you don't like, people not being able to indoctrinate your children? Move to New York. You can do whatever you want here to children. That's your fucking ad, bro, for the New York City,
what pisses
the greatest city on the fucking planet forever, for 100 years, and now it's this. Fuck, man. That's depressing.
Yeah, and I used to live there, which is unfortunate because I love New York City. Yeah. And the thing that's always interesting to me is I truthfully consider myself an independent. I don't think that I agree with certain people on certain different issues, and I truthfully believe that. But ultimately, it pisses me off when you look at some of these politicians, and he certainly is in the news for the last week doing it. But in LA, the mayor and the governor there have done the same thing. I was at the Super Bowl, right? And no one's wearing masks there. No one's wearing a mask, right? Yeah. And then you look down and these kids have to go to school the next day. And my whole thing is okay, right? If you think that's right to wear one or not to wear one, no problem. You have that right as kind of the leader of that city and the elected official. But just practice what you preach, right? How could you rightfully go and do that and enjoy an event with all these celebrities and then turn around and make kids do something different? So I think we just need to return to some kind of normalcy and sane thinking in these situations. And ultimately, we'll see what happens, but it doesn't look like we're getting there anytime soon.
No. Yeah, I mean, it's we don't do kings here, right? I mean, the American system, if you read a lot of the minutes of meetings of the formation of this country, there were several people. Now, John Adams wasn't one of them. He kind of still liked the English version of patricianhood, but George Washington specifically and a number of other people that were on his side were very adamant that there weren't going to be any kind of royalty in this country, right? But it's human nature, right? People want power and money, and eventually certain members of society fucking get into, they achieve a level of institutional power that gives him the ability to box other people out, right? These, like, we talked about this last week about FDR is related to 12 other presidents. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like a guy that we consider to be like, oh, he's a great humanitarian. No, he's a fucking patrician just like everybody else. Like all these people have their best interest in mind. They have their power in mind for the most part. Suarez, I think, is not one of those people. He seems like a good guy, but
you just got to look at the incentive. You got to look at the incentives, right? In my mind, I think it's Charlie Munger has the quote, right? Where if you show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome.
Yep.
And the whole idea, right, is like incentives drive everything in this world. And you can basically pretty much determine what someone is looking to do or wants to do based off of the incentives that are given to them, right? And politicians have different incentives. I made a joke the other day, and maybe there's some kind of underlying truth to it, but Mayor Eric Adams removed the vaccination mandate for professional athletes, right? So Kyrie Irving for a long period of time couldn't play in games, but he could attend games, and visiting players that were unvaccinated could play in games. Again, whether you think that he should or should not be vaccinated, I don't really care. That's obviously a stupid rule, though, that someone could come into the city that's unvaccinated and play while he sits courtside, but he can't play.
But he could also sit in the stands as like a fan.
That's what I mean. Yeah, he could slap hands with the players on the court, right?
Yeah.
And say what's up. He could do it with fans, wasn't required to wear a mask, do any of this stuff. So I think everyone agrees, right, that that's obviously dumb and doesn't make much sense. But then this went on for months, right? So Mayor Eric Adams was, I don't know when he officially took office, but probably a couple of months at this point. And he kept the rule in place. And then conveniently, right, the rule gets removed or changed or altered a week before MLB opening day. And, you just type in, hey, Steve Cohen, Mayor Eric Adams, what do you know? He donated like $1.5 million to his campaign last year.
He made the announcement from Citi Field, goddammit.
From Citi Field.
Yeah.
That's when he went to Citi Field, I was like, all right, there's definitely something else up here. Like, let's go look into this. And it was just so obvious, right? And again, maybe it's a total coincidence. I don't know. I don't really feel like alleging like the guy did something wrong. I don't know him. I don't know what his motives were. But it's certainly interesting when you think about, hey, this was in place for multiple months. You had the opportunity to change it. Next thing you know, you're announcing it at this guy's field who gave you a lot of money, and you're changing the rule for his benefit.
And look, DeGrom and Scherzer got hurt right afterwards, so maybe there's something to it. Look, we could talk to you all goddamn day. You're unbelievably fascinating. I know you've probably got to bounce and just can't hang out with us all day. This is the point in the show. We get to the Drinkin' Bro of the Week, which is someone who has inspired you or helped you become the person you are today. Who would you like to give the Drinkin' Bro of the Week to?
That's a good one. It could be anyone.
Anyone. Alive, dead.
Doesn't even have to be a real person.
Yeah. You can give it to Bruce Jenner.
Iron Man.
Well, I'm going to bore you guys with my answer then.
Good.
My dad.
Everybody says that.
A lot of people say their dad. There's nothing wrong with that.
It's mom or dad or a family member or a mentor in business.
Yeah. It's not bad at all.
So the reason why, so he used to, he worked in IT for a long period of time, worked at Verizon, MCI, a couple places like that, AT&T, started his own business. And then, he's in his 60s now. And he decided a few years ago that he wants to fix up classic cars, right? So he's been into cars his whole life. So he literally closed down shop, right? So him and my mom do that for a living now, and they own they're opening up their second shop now. But ultimately the reason is he works more now than he did previously, and it's fucking cool to see. You know what I mean? It's like this guy at whatever age, you can still decide that that's what you want to do with your life and that's what you're interested in, and really just go for it.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You and your brother, your twin brother. Great interviews, by the way. Great interviews. Nick, you're never going to live that down, man.
We're going to cut Nick some slack. He didn't know.
No, we're not. We're not cutting anyone's slack, dude. This is America. Like, you learn from your mistakes. He's going to sleep in the fucking garage tonight, okay? That's how Tiger Woods got so good.
Who was a better interview, me or my brother?
Well, you're here right now.
You're here right now, yeah.
So, well, I was just going to brag anyways to him. So.
It's called diplomacy.
Hey, this will go back to Nick. You guys were identical.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
No.
Tell everybody where they can find you.
The easiest place is probably just on Twitter, and then you can find everything from there. It's at Joe Pompliano, and then you can find the newsletter and the podcast from there.
Awesome. Well, enjoy Miami, enjoy the weather, and enjoy the Masters this weekend. I know you're a big sports fan. Tiger's at 50-1 currently on DraftKings, so if you want to...
Wait, he was 100-1 yesterday.
No, as soon as he announced, dude, those odds got cut in half.
Come on.
There you go. Let's go Tiger Woods. Same here. I think all of us are. At this point, it'd be awesome.
Did you guys see his practice round yesterday?
Fuck yeah, he looked amazing. Dude, he looked amazing. And have you been to the Masters?
Nah.
Okay, so I've been. I can tell you this, they don't let that many people in there. Every single person who was in there was following Tiger Woods. There's no way that there was somebody else. Like, I bet you the rest of the golfers just looked around and they thought they were playing on some weird public course in like Raleigh or something. Like it was wild to see, where you were just like, oh shit. Literally every single person out there is following Tiger. And that only helps him, in my opinion. Because that's the first time he's played in front of a crowd that big in a long time.
Since before the crash.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I figured when he showed up, you call your caddy down there, you fly in. He's obviously been playing. Sure, he needs to see if he can walk the course, but I don't think you do that without the mindset that if the crowd shows up, you're going to play.
You also don't do it without Toradol.
Well,
he's going to be getting injections into his leg for sure, which, God bless him.
Yeah, and some Vicodin. Let him party a little bit too.
I think he should go Bill Murray and just take a tequila shot on every hole.
I do too. John Daly's at Hooters across the street from there. So
yeah, but John Daly is going to probably shoot a hole in one, but I don't know if he's going to, actually win a tournament.
Oh, he's not winning a tournament anytime soon, but his whole.
He's got 3 holes in one in the last 2 years.
Exactly.
Like in actual tournaments.
Yeah.
It's fucking ridiculous.
That's crazy.
Dude's dying of cancer and he's still shooting the ball.
One of the best. Thanks for being on. We greatly appreciate it. It was a fun show. For D'Anthony Holloway, I'm Ross Patterson. This is the Drinkin' Bros podcast.